Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. I had always believed that life followed a certain rhythm. You wake up, go to work, come home, and find comfort in the person you've chosen to share your days with. Marriage, at least to me, was supposed to be a safe harbor, a place where storms calmed and the world outside couldn't touch you. For years, I told myself that my marriage fit that picture. I was busy running cases at the law firm, working endless hours, chasing promotion after promotion. But whenever I walked to the front door of my house, I thought I was stepping into peace. That belief was shattered one evening. It was a day like any other. I had been in the office from early morning, handling back-to-back client meetings and reviewing stacks of contracts. My colleagues teased me often, calling me a machine, because I worked like I didn't know the meaning of exhaustion. But that day, something unusual happened. My last client canceled at the last minute, leaving me 3 hours earlier than expected. At first, I thought about staying at the office, catching up on more paperwork. But something inside me said, "Go home. Spend the evening with your wife." It seemed like a good idea. As I drove back, I felt a strange sense of excitement. I imagined her surprised smile when she saw me walk in early, maybe the two of us cooking together, sitting down at the dining table without the weight of time pressing on us. I thought about how we hadn't spent much time together lately, and this was the perfect chance to bridge that growing gap. I didn't know then that fate was setting me up for one of the darkest evenings of my life. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed something odd. My wife's brother's cars were parked outside. That wasn't unusual in itself. Her family often visited. But the unease that washed over me was undeniable. I couldn't explain it, but something in the air felt heavy. I unlocked the door quietly, expecting laughter, maybe a family dinner in progress. Instead, I was met with silence. Then from upstairs, I heard the muffled sound of drawers slamming. "Hello." I called out, placing my briefcase by the door. No one answered. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step filling me with dread. And then I saw it. Our bedroom door wide open, clothes scattered on the floor like someone had taken a storm and released it into my home. My wife stood there, her face red with rage, pulling my suits, my shirts, even my shoes from the wardrobe and throwing them across the room. Some she ripped at the seams, as though destroying them would erase every memory tied to them. Her brother stood behind her, arms crossed, glaring at me like executioners waiting for their cue. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice trembling more from shock than fear. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she grabbed another one of my jackets and hurled it to the floor. "You think I don't know?" She finally spat, her eyes blazing. "Know what?" I said, confused and stunned. "That you've been living a lie. That you've been sneaking behind my back." Her words struck me like a knife, but before I could respond, one of her brothers lunged forward and shoved me hard against the wall. The breath left my chest as pain shot through my back. "Don't you dare deny it," the older one growled. "We know everything." My mind raced. What were they talking about? I hadn't done anything wrong, hadn't betrayed her trust, hadn't broken the vows we had exchanged. I was too stunned to react, too blindsided to defend myself. "Wait, please. There must be some misunderstanding," I stammered, holding my hands up, but reason had no place in that room. The younger brother swung his fist and struck me in the jaw. My vision blurred for a moment as I staggered back, nearly collapsing onto the floor. The anger in their eyes wasn't just protective. It was violent, merciless, and filled with hatred I didn't deserve. My wife didn't stop them. She didn't try to calm them down or question whether their accusations were true. She simply kept tearing at my clothes, muttering curses under her breath, her face twisted in disgust. "After everything I gave you, after everything I sacrificed," she shouted, "this is how you repay me?" Tears welled up in my eyes, not from the blows, but from the sheer disbelief. This was the woman I had built my life with, the one I had trusted with every piece of myself. And here she was, watching me being beaten by her own brothers, as if I were some intruder caught trespassing. The next few minutes were chaos. Every time I tried to speak, Another punch came. My ribs ached, my lips split, and blood trickled down my chin. The sound of fabric tearing, drawers slamming, and fists landing filled the room until it felt like I was drowning in noise and pain. Finally, when I thought I couldn't take another hit, I pushed myself up and shouted through the chaos. Enough! Stop this. At least tell me what I've done to deserve this. My voice cracked, but it carried enough desperation to make them pause. For a brief moment, silence fell. My wife turned toward me, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She threw down the last shirt in her hand and sneered. You'll know soon enough. But for now, get out. Get out of this house, out of my sight. You disgust me. Those words stung worse than any punch. I looked around at the wreckage of my belongings, at the rage in her eyes, and at the bruises forming on my body. My entire world had been ripped apart in a single evening, and I didn't even know why. I stumbled out of the room, clutching the wall for support. My brothers-in-law followed, hurling threats as they shoved me toward the stairs. Every step felt like I was walking further away from the life I thought I had. When I reached the front door, I turned back one last time, hoping, begging, that she would look at me with even a flicker of doubt, some sign that she might hear me out. But all I saw was her standing at the top of the stairs, her arms crossed, her face as cold as stone. That was the night I realized a woman I thought I knew no longer existed. I left my home with nothing but the clothes on my back, bruises on my body, and a storm of unanswered questions tearing me apart from the inside. I didn't know then that this nightmare would only grow darker, and that the same night would set in motion a chain of events that would not only destroy my marriage, but also challenge my entire existence as a man, as a husband, and eventually, as the CEO of a law firm who would learn to rebuild from the ashes. But in that moment, as I walked away from the house that no longer felt like mine, all I cared was confusion, heartbreak, and the haunting image of my wife ripping apart everything that once symbolized our life together. The night I walked out my own home, I didn't know where to go. My body throbbed from the blows I had taken, and my mind was fogged with disbelief. I could still hear her voice echoing in my head. You disgust me. Those words gnawed at me more painfully than my broken lip or my bruised ribs. I sat in my car for hours, staring blankly at the steering wheel, trying to make sense of everything. What had she meant by accusing me of living a lie? Where had this storm of hatred come from? I had been faithful, dedicated, and supportive, but it was as if all of that counted for nothing. I wanted to turn back, to demand answers, but something inside me whispered that it was useless. She had already judged me, condemned me without trial, and allowed her brothers to act as judge, jury, and executioner. Eventually, I drove off. I didn't even know where I was heading. The city lights blurred through my tears as I pressed the accelerator, feeling like I was running from something I couldn't escape. I ended up at a small motel on the outskirts of town. The receptionist gave me a strange look when he saw the bruises on my face. But I didn't care. I paid in cash, took the key, and locked myself inside a room that smelled faintly of dust and loneliness. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the cracked ceiling. My life had been turned upside down in a single evening. I thought of the years I had spent building a life with her, of the promises we had made, of the laughter and small moments that now felt like lies. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw her tearing apart my clothes, her face twisted in fury, her brother's fists swinging at me. The following days were worse. She didn't call, didn't explain, didn't even check if I was alive after the beating. Instead, word spread quickly. Friends began to look at me differently, some with pity, some with suspicion. A few even asked me outright, "What did you do?" That question cut deeply because I hadn't done anything wrong, yet the silence for her side made it seem like I was guilty of something unspeakable. Then came the legal notices. Within weeks, I was served with divorce papers. The accusations inside them were cruel and baseless. Claims that I had been unfaithful, that I had neglected her, that I had emotionally abandoned the marriage. It felt like a nightmare written in ink. And because her brothers had influence in town, I knew this wasn't just a family conflict anymore. It was a battle that could ruin me completely. I wanted to fight back, but I was exhausted. Nights at the motel turned into weeks. I barely ate, barely slept. My reflection in the mirror became a stranger. Sunken eyes, hollow cheeks, a man broken in spirit. There were moments I wondered if it was worth going on at all. But then something shifted. One morning, I walked past a mirror again, and instead of pitying myself, I got angry. Angry at her for betraying me, angry at her brothers for beating me, and angry at myself for allowing their lies to chain me down. That was the day I decided I wouldn't stay defeated. I called a trusted friend from the firm, someone who knew me beyond the rumors, and I told him everything. For the first time, I let the truth pour out, the confusion, the betrayal, the injustice. He listened quietly and then said something that struck me. You've spent your whole career defending others. Maybe it's time you defend yourself. Those words reignited a fire in me. I was a lawyer. I knew the law. I knew how to fight. And if I didn't stand up for myself, I'd lose more than a marriage. I'd lose who I was. From that day, I poured my pain into work. I built my cases at the firm with sharper focus than ever before. Every trial became a battlefield where I unleashed all the strength I couldn't use in my personal life. The bruises healed, but the scars in my heart fueled a relentless determination. Colleagues noticed a change. Where I had once been driven by ambition, now I was driven by survival and the need to prove myself. Months passed, and years. My ex-wife moved on quickly. I heard rumors of her with someone else, maybe even the reason for her sudden hatred toward me. At first, it tore me apart to imagine her happy while I was piecing myself back together. But slowly, I stopped caring. Her betrayal had pushed me into the darkest valley of my life, but it also forced me to discover parts of myself I never knew existed. I climbed the ranks of the law firm with unshakable resilience. Each case I won added to my reputation. Clients began to trust me with bigger responsibilities. My superiors took notice, and before long, I wasn't just another lawyer. I was leading teams, making decisions, shaping strategies. The man who had once been dragged out of his own house, like a criminal, was now commanding respect in courtrooms and boardrooms. When the day finally came that I was named CEO of the firm, I stood in my office alone for a long time, looking out the window at the city skyline. The title didn't erase the past, didn't heal every wound, but it marked a victory I had earned through fire. I had rebuilt myself from ashes no one thought I'd rise from. But even in that moment of triumph, a shadow lingered. I sometimes wondered if my wife ever thought about what she had done, if she ever regretted tearing apart our life with such cruelty. I doubted it. People like her rarely look back. Still, I carried those memories as reminders. Not every scar needs to fade. Some stay as silent teachers, whispering lessons in moments of weakness. Mine taught me never to give blind trust again, never to let anyone define my worth, and never to surrender when life tried to break me. Looking back now, I realize that coming home early that night was both the worst and the best twist of fate in my life. Worst, because it destroyed the illusion of the marriage I had believed in. Best, because it pushed me onto a path I would never have chosen otherwise, a path that forged me into the man I am today. I still remember walking out of that house bruised, broken, and stripped of dignity. But if I could speak to that version of myself now, I would tell him, hold on, this pain will shape you. This betrayal will not be your end. It will be your rebirth. And that's exactly what happened. The law firm became more than just a career for me. It became my redemption. Each client I defended, each case I fought, was a step away from a night of humiliation. And with each victory, I grew stronger, not just as a lawyer, but as a man who had faced his darkest hour and refused to be destroyed by it. Now, when I sit at the head of the boardroom table, when people look to me for guidance, I know that my strength isn't just built on success. It's built on survival. It's built on betrayal, heartbreak, and the resilience to rise again. That night, my wife and her brothers thought they had broken me, but they were wrong. They didn't break me, they built me.